सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस इन पाकिस्तान। पाकिस्तान की पॉलिटिकल हिस्ट्री को समझने के लिए इस टॉपिक को समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है। अगर हम पाकिस्तान के पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी, डेमोक्रेटिक डेवलपमेंट, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल क्राइसिस, मिलिट्री इंटरवेंशंस, वीक पॉलिटिकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस, गवर्नेंस प्रॉब्लम्स, फॉरेन पॉलिसी और नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को अंडरस्टैंड करना चाहते हैं तो हमें सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस को अंडरस्टैंड करना ही होगा। लेकिन सबसे पहले एक बेसिक सवाल, सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस होती क्या है? सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशन से मुराद है द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन इलेक्टेड सिविलियन इंस्टीट्यूशंस एंड द मिलिट्री इस्टेब्लिशमेंट रिगार्डिंग अथॉरिटी, गवर्नेंस, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एंड डिसीजन मेकिंग। यानी स्टेट को अल्टीमेटली कौन गवर्न करेगा, इलेक्टेड सिविलियन लीडरशिप, मिलिट्री लीडरशिप या फिर दोनों इंस्टीट्यूशंस के दरमियान कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बैलेंस। डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम में बेसिक प्रिंसिपल होता है सिविलियन सुप्रीमेसी ओवर द मिलिट्री, यानी मिलिट्री स्टेट की डिफेंस और नेशनल सिक्योरिटी का इंस्टीट्यूशन है, लेकिन पॉलिटिकल अथॉरिटी इलेक्टेड सिविलियन इंस्टीट्यूशंस के पास होती है। पाकिस्तान की हिस्ट्री में इसी बैलेंस का क्वेश्चन रिपीटेडली इमर्ज हुआ है। सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस थ्योरेटिकल फाउंडेशन। सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस का क्लासिकल स्टडी लार्जली इस सवाल पर फोकस करता है, हाउ कैन अ डेमोक्रेटिक स्टेट मेंटेन अ प्रोफेशनल मिलिट्री वाइल इंश्योरिंग सिविलियन कंट्रोल। अमेरिकन पॉलिटिकल साइंटिस्ट सैमुअल हंटिंगटन ने सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ऑब्जेक्टिव सिविलियन कंट्रोल का कॉन्सेप्ट दिया। इसका बेसिक आइडिया ये है कि मिलिट्री को प्रोफेशनल, पॉलिटिकली न्यूट्रल और इंस्टीट्यूशनली डिसिप्लिन रखा जाए वाइल सिविलियन अथॉरिटीज़ रिटेन अल्टीमेट पॉलिटिकल कंट्रोल। एक और इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंकर मॉरिस जेनोविट्ज ने मिलिट्री को सोसाइटी और पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम के ब्रॉडर फ्रेमवर्क के साथ इंटीग्रेट करने पर एम्फेसिस दिया। पाकिस्तान के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये थ्योरेटिकल डिबेट बहुत रेलिवेंट है बिकॉज यहाँ मिलिट्री सिर्फ डिफेंस इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं रही, डिफरेंट पीरियड्स में उसका रोल गवर्नेंस और पॉलिटिक्स तक एक्सपेंड हुआ। आइडियल डेमोक्रेटिक मॉडल। एक हेल्दी डेमोक्रेटिक सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशनशिप में पार्लियामेंट डिफेंस पॉलिसी एंड ओवरसाइट करती है, इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट पॉलिटिकल अथॉरिटी एंड स्ट्रेटेजिक डायरेक्शन, मिलिट्री प्रोफेशनल डिफेंस एंड नेशनल सिक्योरिटी रोल, जुडिशरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ओवरसाइट, मीडिया एंड सिविल सोसाइटी अकाउंटेबिलिटी एंड पब्लिक डिबेट। इस मॉडल में मिलिट्री इज़ पावरफुल enough to defend the state but not politically powerful enough to govern the state। ये डिस्टिंक्शन याद रखें। पाकिस्तान इनिशियल सिविल मिलिट्री स्ट्रक्चर 1947 में पाकिस्तान को इमीडिएटली मल्टीपल क्राइसिस फेस करने पड़े। कश्मीर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, रिफ्यूजी क्राइसिस, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव प्रॉब्लम्स, वीक इकोनॉमी, लिमिटेड इंस्टीट्यूशनल कैपेसिटी, बॉर्डर इश्यूज़। पाकिस्तान का स्टेट स्ट्रक्चर न्यू था लेकिन मिलिट्री कंपैरेटिवली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड इंस्टीट्यूशन थी। यहाँ से एक स्ट्रक्चरल इम्बैलेंस डेवलप होना शुरू हुआ। सिविलियन इंस्टीट्यूशंस वीक थे, मिलिट्री इंस्टीट्यूशंस वाज रिलेटिवली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड। इस डिफरेंस ने फ्यूचर सिविल मिलिट्री रिलेशंस को डीपली इन्फ्लुएंस किया। अर्ली ईयर्स, व्हाई डिड मिलिट्री बिकम इम्पोर्टेंट? पार्टीशन के इमीडिएटली बाद पाकिस्तान को सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस फेस हुए। 1947 टू 48 कश्मीर वार, पाकिस्तान को अर्ली मिलिट्री कन्फ्रंटेशन का एक्सपीरियंस हुआ। इससे डिफेंस इस्टेब्लिशमेंट की इंपॉर्टेंस इंक्रीज़ हुई। साथ ही पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी, लीडरशिप क्राइसिस, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक इन्फ्लुएंस, वीक पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज़ ने सिविलियन इंस्टीट्यूशनल डेवलपमेंट को स्लो किया। यानी अर्ली पाकिस्तान में सिक्योरिटी स्टेट ग्रेजुअली बिकेम स्ट्रॉन्गर देन द डेमोक्रेटिक स्टेट। ब्यूरोक्रेसी मिलिट्री अलायंस। अर्ली पाकिस्तान में सिर्फ मिलिट्री ही पावरफुल नहीं थी, सिविल ब्यूरोक्रेसी भी एक्सट्रीमली इन्फ्लुएंशियल थी। पॉलिटिकल साइंटिस्ट्स ने पाकिस्तान के अर्ली स्टेट स्ट्रक्चर को अक्सर ब्यूरोक्रेटिक मिलिट्री एलीट के पर्सपेक्टिव से एनालाइज किया है। रीजंस इंक्लूडेड वीक पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, लिमिटेड डेमोक्रेटिक एक्सपीरियंस, स्ट्रॉन्ग इनहेरिटेड ब्यूरोक्रेसी, सेंट्रलाइज्ड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव स्ट्रक्चर एंड सिक्योरिटी प्रेशर्स। थस पॉलिटिकल पावर ग्रेजुअली इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव से नॉन इलेक्टेड इंस्टीट्यूशंस की तरफ शिफ्ट होने लगी। 1958 फर्स्ट मिलिट्री कूप। अब पाकिस्तान की सिविल मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री का मेजर टर्निंग पॉइंट 1958 प्रेसिडेंट इस्कंदर मिर्जा एब्रोगेटेड द 1956 कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड इम्पोज्ड मार्शल लॉ। जनरल अयूब खान was appointed chief martial law administrator. Shortly afterwards, Ayub Khan removed Iskandar Mirza and assumed the power. This became Pakistan's first direct military takeover. Ayub Khan era. Ayub Khan ruled from 1958 to 1969. उनके एरा में मिलिट्री रूल को इंस्टीट्यूशनल फॉर्म मिला। 1962 Constitution, a new constitutional framework introduced a strong presidential system. Ayub Khan's political system emphasized centralized authority, controlled political participation, basic democracies and strong executive. इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट का कुछ इंडिकेटर्स इंप्रूव हुए, लेकिन पॉलिटिकल पार्टिसिपेशन और डेमोक्रेटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन लिमिटेड रही। बेसिक डेमोक्रेसीज, अयूब खान ने बेसिक डेमोक्रेसीज सिस्टम इंट्रोड्यूस किया। इस सिस्टम का स्टेटेड ऑब्जेक्टिव लोकल लेवल पॉलिटिकल पार्टिसिपेशन को प्रमोट करना था, लेकिन क्रिटिक्स ने आर्ग्यू किया कि ये सिस्टम सेंट्रलाइज्ड प्रेसिडेंशियल अथॉरिटी को लेजिटिमाइज करने का मैकेनिज्म भी बना। 1969 याह्या खान, अयूब खान के अगेंस्ट पॉलिटिकल अपोजिशन और मास एजिटेशन इंक्रीज हुई। 1969 में अयूब खान ने रिज़ाइन कर दिया। जनरल याह्या खान ने पावर अज्यूम की। मार्शल लॉ कंटिन्यू हुआ। याह्या खान का मेजर हिस्टोरिकल रोल। 1970 जनरल इलेक्शंस, पाकिस्तान के फर्स्ट नेशन वाइड जनरल इलेक्शंस, लेकिन पॉलिटिकल डिसएग्रीमेंट, पावर ट्रांसफ़र क्राइसिस और ईस्ट वेस्ट पाकिस्तान टेंशन अल्टीमेटली 1971 क्राइसिस तक ले गए। 1971 एंड इट्स इम्पैक्ट। 1971 में पाकिस्तान ब्रोक अपार्ट और बांग्लादेश इमर्ज हुआ। ये इवेंट पाकिस्तान के पॉलिटिकल और मिलिट्री इंस्टीट्यूशंस के लिए एनॉर्मस शॉक था। आफ्टर 1971 civilian political leadership returned to central authority. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto assumed the leadership. 1973 Constitution was introduced. 1973 Constitution and civilian supremacy. 1973 Constitution established a parliamentary democratic system. The Constitution provides for Parliament, Prime Minister, President, Judiciary, provincial governments, and fundamental rights. The armed forces are constitutionally subordinate to the authority established by the Constitution. Article 243 broadly establishes the federal government's constitutional authority over the armed forces. Therefore, constitutional principle is clear. Pakistan is a constitutional democratic state, not a military state. Problem principle में नहीं, practice में रहा. Bhutto and the military. Bhutto attempted to strengthen civilian authority after 1971. However, his government also relied on the military for internal security, Balochistan operations and strategic affairs. 1977 में political crisis intensify हुआ. Opposition's protests, electoral controversy and political instability created an environment for military intervention. 1977 General Ziaul Haq. On 5th of July 1977, General Ziaul Haq removed Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Martial law was imposed. This became Pakistan's second major military regime. Zia ruled until his death in 1988. Zia era and civil military relations. Zia's period transformed Pakistan's political and ideological landscape. Major developments included Islamization policies, constitutional changes, political party restrictions, controlled political participation, Afghan war, and expansion of security institutions. The Afghan-Soviet War particularly increased Pakistan's strategic importance. Military and intelligence institutions gained greater influence because of national security, Afghan resistance, and US-Pakistan strategic cooperation. Post-Zia democratic period. Zia's death in 1988 opened the way for democratic government between 1988 to 1999. Pakistan experienced repeated civilian governments. Major political leaders included Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif. However, democratic governments faced institutional conflicts, presidential interventions, military influence, political instability, allegations of corruption, weak governance. Civil-military relations remained unsettled. Why did civilian governments remain weak? Several factors contributed. Weak political institutions, lack of internal democracy, governance failures, political polarization, constitutional manipulation, and security environment. 1999 General Pervez Musharraf. Another major turning point came in October 1999. General Pervez Musharraf took power following a military takeover. He remained the central political authority until his resignation in 2008. Musharraf era. Musharraf introduced the idea of enlightened moderation. and presented his regime as a combination of modernization and controlled democracy. A civilian political system was later restored, but the military remained highly influential. The period is therefore important for understanding the later concept of hybrid governance. What is hybrid governance? Hybrid governance refers to a system in which civilian institutions formally exist, but unelected institutions exercise substantial influence over political decision making. It lies somewhere between pure civilian democracy and direct military rule. Pakistan's political discourse has frequently used the term hybrid regime to describe periods in which civilian and military power overlap. Hybrid governance does not necessarily mean direct martial law, rather, it suggests shared or overlapping political influence with the balance varying across time. Post 2008 civilian period. After Musharraf's resignation, Pakistan entered another phase of civilian governments. PPP government 2008 to 2013, PMLN government 2013 to 2018, PTI government 2018 to 2022. The formal constitutional framework remained democratic. Parliament elections and civilian governments continued. However, debates over military's role in politics remained central. 18th Amendment. A major development in Pakistan's constitutional history was the 18th Constitutional Amendment in 2010. It strengthened parliamentary government, provincial autonomy, constitutional democracy. It also removed major aspects of presidential dominance created during the military regimes. For civil-military relations, the amendment represented a broader attempt to restore parliamentary constitutionalism. Civil-military relations after 2008. The relationship remained complicated. Military continued to have strong influence in defense, national security, counterterrorism, Afghanistan policy, India policy, and strategic affairs, while civilian governments retained authority over legislation, taxation, development, administration, and welfare. The challenge was therefore, where does national security and political governance begin? Why is military so influential in Pakistan? Now we come to the heart of the topic. There is no single cause. It is the result of multiple structural factors. Factor number 1, geographical location. Pakistan is located in a highly strategic region. Neighbors include India, Afghanistan, Iran, China. Pakistan is also close to Central Asia and Gulf region. This creates permanent security considerations. Factor number 2, India-Pakistan rivalry. This is one of the most important factors. Pakistan and India have experienced wars, border conflicts, Kashmir dispute, military competition, and nuclear rivalry. Continuous security competition increases the influence of defense institutions. Factor number 3, Kashmir dispute. Kashmir has remained a core national security issue. Because of its military and diplomatic dimensions, the Kashmir question has strengthened the role of Pakistan's security establishment. Factor number 4, Afghanistan. Pakistan's western border has also been strategically important. Major developments included Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, Afghan war, Taliban period, war on terror, cross-border militancy. Because Afghanistan is closely linked to Pakistan's security, military institutions acquired greater influence in Afghan policy. Factor number 5, weak political institutions. This is perhaps the most important internal factor. Strong democracy requires strong parliament, independent political parties, effective local governments, institutionalized political competition, and rule of law. When these institutions remain weak, unelected institutions can gain greater space. Factor 6, political polarization. Pakistan's political parties have frequently been deeply divided. Instead of institutional competition, politics sometimes becomes existential confrontation. One party's government tries to eliminate the political space for another. This weakness weakens the civilian institutions collectively. Factor number 7, economic weakness. Economic instability also affects civil-military relations. A weak economy produces dependence on external assistance, governance crisis, unemployment, inflation, and social unrest. Economic instability can weaken civilian legitimacy and increase demand for centralized authority. Factor number 8, bureaucratic structure. Pakistan inherited a highly centralized colonial bureaucracy. The bureaucracy was relatively institutionalized compared with political institutions. Historically, military and bureaucracy together became powerful pillars of the state. Factor 9, judicial role. Another important dimension is judiciary. Pakistan's history includes periods when courts dealt with military takeovers through doctrines such as doctrine of necessity. In certain historical cases, courts provided constitutional or legal justification for extra constitutional actions. This created an important precedent. Extra constitutional intervention could sometimes receive judicial accommodation. Later constitutional jurisprudence increasingly emphasized constitutional supremacy. Factor number 10, public perception. Sometimes military intervention gains public support when civilian governments are perceived as corrupt, inefficient, unstable, and excessively partisan. Therefore, civil military imbalance is not produced by military institutions alone. Civilian political failures can create political space for military influence. But this does not mean military rule is a sustainable substitute for democracy. Military as a national institution, it is important to maintain balance. Pakistan's military has significant public legitimacy, partly because it is associated with national defense, disaster response, counterterrorism, border security, and national emergencies. Therefore, the military remains an important national institution. The constitutional issue is not should Pakistan have a strong military? Of course, it should. The actual question is, should military strength translate into political supremacy? In a constitutional democracy, no. Military's role in foreign policy. Pakistan's security establishment has historically had strong influence in India policy, Afghanistan policy, nuclear strategy, and strategic relations with major powers. This is partly because foreign policy in Pakistan has often been viewed through the national security lens. Military and national security. Pakistan faces genuine security challenges. Therefore, the military must have expertise and institutional input regarding defense, intelligence, strategic threats, and border security. But a democratic model requires civilian political leadership to determine overall national policy within constitutional institutions. Military and economy. Civil military relations also have an economic dimension. Pakistan has a substantial defense establishment and military linked welfare and commercial organizations. Military involvement in economic activities has generated debate regarding transparency, competition, accountability, and civil military balance. Supporters argue that institutions contribute to employment, welfare, industrial development, and critics argue that excessive military economic influence can create institutional imbalance and reduced civilian oversight. Military and development. Pakistan mein military has also played roles in infrastructure, disaster management, emergency response, logistics, and public sector projects. Benefits of strong civil military coordination. Civil military relations should not be understood as civil versus military. Instead, healthy democracy requires civilian supremacy, military professionalism, and institutional cooperation. A strong relationship can provide national security, policy coordination, crisis management, disaster response, and strategic stability. The problem begins when cooperation becomes political subordination in civilian institutions. Negative consequences of military intervention. Military intervention can produce short-term stability, but historically it creates several long-term problems. Democratic discontinuity, institutional weakening, political polarization, constitutional distortions, accountability problems, and policy discontinuity. Impact on political parties. Repeated military interventions can create a cycle. Weak political parties, military intervention, political suppression, institutional weakness, weak civilian governments, and another intervention. This becomes a vicious cycle of democratic fragility. Civilian supremacy. Now, the central concept. Civilian supremacy does not mean military institutions should be weakened. It means the armed forces should remain professionally strong but constitutionally subordinate to elected civilian authority. This is the model Pakistan needs. Parliamentary oversight. A strong parliament should exercise oversight over defense policy, defense budget, national security policy, and strategic priorities. Parliamentary committees should have sufficient expertise, information, and institutional capacity. Without effective oversight, civilian supremacy remains incomplete. Democratic control versus military professionalism. This is very important balance. Too much political interference in military affairs can damage military professionalism. Too much military intervention in politics can damage democratic governance. Therefore, ideal model is professional military and democratic civilian control. Role of political parties. Political parties have a major responsibility. They must strengthen internal democracy, respect constitutional institutions, accept electoral outcomes, avoid inviting non-democratic intervention against opponents, develop policy expertise, and improve governance. A political party cannot demand civilian supremacy only when it is in opposition. Civilian supremacy must be consistent democratic principle. Role of Parliament. Parliament should become the central arena for national security debate, defense legislation, budgetary oversight, and foreign policy discussion. National security should not become an area completely inaccessible to democratic institutions. At the same time, sensitive operational information must remain appropriately protected. So oversight does not mean operational interference. Role of judiciary. The judiciary should uphold the constitution, protect the constitutional continuity, reject the unconstitutional takeovers, maintain rule of law, and ensure institutional accountability. Role of media. Media can strengthen civil-military balance through informed debate, fast-checking, accountability, public awareness. The irresponsible reporting can also increase polarization, spread misinformation, and damage national security. Civil-military relations and democracy. Democracy is not simply elections. A functioning democracy requires elected government, constitutional supremacy, rule of law, institutional accountability, civilian control of security institutions, independent judiciary, and free political competition. Therefore, civil-military balance is a core component of democratic consolidation. Civil-military relations and good governance. Good governance requires transparency, accountability, policy continuity, and institutional competence. The hybrid model. Critical analysis. Pakistan's contemporary political debate has frequently used the concept of hybrid regime. The idea suggests elected governments exist, parliament exists, elections occur, but unelected institutions may retain substantial influence in political affairs. The analytical problem with the hybrid model is that it can produce shared responsibility without shared accountability. If civilian government is responsible for outcomes but lacks complete autonomy, accountability becomes complicated. This is why clear constitutional boundaries are essential. Is military intervention the root cause? Military intervention is both a cause and a consequence of institutional weakness. It is a cause because interventions weaken democratic institutions, but can also be a consequence because political instability, weak governance, polarization, and institutional conflict create conditions in which military intervention becomes politically possible. Therefore, we should avoid a simplistic military is responsible for everything argument. Instead, analyze the institutional ecosystem. The vicious cycle. Pakistan's civil-military problem can be presented as weak political institutions, political instability, security concerns, military influence, civilian institutional weakening, reduced democratic capacity, further political instability, and more military influence. Way forward. Now let's discuss practical reforms. Constitutional supremacy, strengthen the parliament, institutionalize national security policy, strengthen political parties, improve civilian expertise, reduce political polarization, strengthen local governments, strengthen economy, protect judicial independence, and encourage responsible media. A strong CSS candidate should avoid two extremes. Extreme number 1, military is the only reason Pakistan has problems. Too simplistic. Extreme number 2, military intervention is necessary because politicians are corrupt. Also inadequate. A mature answer says Pakistan's civil-military imbalance is the product of historical insecurity, weak civilian institutions, political polarization, bureaucratic traditions, constitutional disruptions, and repeated military interventions. Sustainable democratic consolidation requires strengthening both civilian capacity and military professionalism within clear constitutional boundaries. This is the balanced argument. तो पूरे टॉपिक को अगर हम एक सेंटेंस में याद रखें, Pakistan's civil military problem is not fundamentally about having a strong military. It is about maintaining a strong military within a constitutional order where elected civilian institutions retain ultimate political authority. Democracy does not require a weak military, and national security does not require weak democracy. एक्चुअली पाकिस्तान को दोनों चाहिए, स्ट्रॉन्ग डिफेंस भी और स्ट्रॉन्ग डेमोक्रेटिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस भी। और जब ये दोनों अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बाउंड्रीज़ में इफ़ेक्टिवली काम करें तभी पाकिस्तान सस्टेनेबल पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी, गुड गवर्नेंस और डेमोक्रेटिक कंसोलिडेशन अचीव कर सकता है।